Your Excellencies, Madam Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, fellow panelists, my name is Koomah Brown-Orleans. I work with the General Transport, Petroleum and Chemical Workers Union of the Trade Union Congress in Ghana, and I speak on behalf of Workers and Trade Union Major Group. The vision for global development is at a critical juncture, and the need to move beyond business as usual is stronger than ever. The development agenda is ambitious, and the challenges it poses seems enormous. To meet these ambitious objectives of the Sustainable Development Agenda, it is imperative that the follow-up and review process demonstrates the same level of ambition. We recommend the following: that the Sustainable Development Goals must be informed and set against internationally agreed norms and standards, which ultimately underpin the post-2015 framework, such as international human rights commitment and ILO labor standards. This should be reflected in the indicators. They must be right-based and consider implementation from the perspective of both duty bearers and right holders. Member states should report on the implementation of all targets, including the so-called means of implementation target. Global accountability is crucial to ensure fairer and more equitable governance in development, which ensures better policy coherence for development. The high-level political forum, as the main body for review at global level, should seek to integrate existing accountability mechanisms. We highlight the ILO framework as a living example on how accountability mechanisms can work at global level through to the national level. The ILO supervisory machinery has 4 parts. First are the objectives or the ratification of ILO conventions. Second is a periodic review, which looks at the application of ratified conventions in different countries. Third is a representation or complaint mechanism, where issues can be raised with the ILO's governance. And fourth is a remedy mechanism, where technical assistance and social dialogue are used. This will be very difficult to replicate in the high-level political forum, but it should at least inform the global accountability mechanism and national review systems of the International Development Agenda and be drawn upon as a good practice. At the national level, we recommend that review processes must be fully and genuinely participatory. In this light, social dialogue, bringing together the social partners, employers and workers' organizations, is an excellent example of how to ensure ownership of policy processes at the national level. Social dialogue is not preordained and requires both the political will and an environment that welcomes it. As a prerequisite, it has to allow both workers and employers' organizations to exist and function equally. This begins with respect for fundamental freedoms of right to association and right to collective bargaining, representative and independent employers and workers' organizations, sound industrial relation practices, functioning labor administrations, including labor inspections, and respect for the social partners. Effective social dialogue can strengthen economic and social governance, stimulate inclusive growth, and combat inequality, and can also foster stable and peaceful societies through social cohesion and dispute resolution, whilst also enhancing accountability and democratic ownership. Given the new financing context and within it the importance of using several different types of finance in synergy, we take great interest in the how to ensure that the private sector contributes to sustainable development. This agenda calls for decent work for all by 2030. If we are meant to achieve this ambitious goal, the follow-up and review must integrate effective mechanisms to hold business accountable. There are many instruments already well developed which seeks to ensure private sector alignment with broader international standards and objectives, from the ILO Multinational Enterprises Declaration and the OECD guidelines to MNEs, to the ILO conventions and supervisory machinery. Unfortunately, what these instruments often lack is enforceability. Integrating these existing instruments into a follow-up and review mechanism will be one way to include provisions which seek to assess private sector's contributions to sustainable development objectives, including through respect and adherence to international standards in areas of labor and environment. Going forward, we need to envision a different world. And it envisioned a different world, well, from last week's hearings, that is what is sought to say, that going forward, we need to envision a different world. A world where civil society and labor will not see business and private sector as their enemies, but bridging that gap which separates these two. And so currently what we have is one party sees the other as a threat and danger, whilst another party sees it as a powerful partnership. But in our main concern in bridging this gap is that private sector must be subject to intense scrutiny and review, follow strict criteria or guidelines, and show real added value versus traditional forms of public procurement. It should also ensure that it benefits local economies and not infringe on the right to development by imposing conditions, and also support all aspects of the Sustainable Development Agenda. Finally, the OECD principles for public governance of public-private partnerships are useful tools when making decisions on whether to use PPPs, and we invite member states to use them or develop something similar for their use. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana.